This morning's reading comes from Mark chapter 7, beginning at verse 14. Then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside of a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile." When he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about the parable. He said to them, "Then do you also fail to understand? Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from outside cannot defile, since it enters not the heart, but the stomach, and goes out into the sewer?" Thus he declared all foods clean. And he said, "It is what comes out of a person that defiles. For it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, and folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person." Throughout the Old Testament, the Israelites were learning more and more about God. In many times, they were nomadic, wandering as God directed them from one place to another with all their goods and chattels, their flocks and their herds. Obviously, they ate each day, and as a result, God guided them into what they should or shouldn't eat, and how they should prepare the food, and how they should prepare themselves to eat that food. And so, over the years, there were many rules and regulations that the Israelites took to be from God, certainly guided by God, and they embellished them, so that by the time Jesus came onto the earth and was living, the Jewish people, the Israelites, were very much encompassed by these rituals and rites about food and about eating. So, for example, when Jesus at one stage with his disciples picked corn on the Sabbath from a field and rubbed it between their hands and then ate the corn, the Pharisees were horrified. Not only did they wish that Jesus had not done that on the Sabbath, but also that he had not washed his hands before he ate. Neither did he wash his hands after he'd eaten. These rites of purification were very special to the Pharisees and the Orthodox Jews. As I say, in earlier days they had been a nomadic race, and it was important that they kept these rules and regulations, not only for their health, but also because it made them distinct from the other tribes around them. No one else had the same sort of rules and regulations. I'm going to digress very slightly now. In 2006, I was finishing my ordination course, and all us ordinands had to do a 3-month sabbatical into another parish, where we had to study and learn how things were done differently from our own parishes. I've no idea why, but I was allocated the cathedral in Stockholm in Sweden. So off I went, and I had a marvellous time. On one occasion, various members of the staff of the cathedral, including myself, were invited to go to a local convent where a Jewish lady was going to give a talk about what it meant to be an Orthodox Jew. She was a young lady, very attractive, and she had prepared a trestle table with all sorts of items on it, from their famous candlestick and saucepans of different sorts and all sorts of kitchen utensils. And during her talk, she went through all the sorts of rites and rituals about food and eating and meal times and various other things. I was impressed and I learnt a lot, but I also felt slightly uneasy because I thought, I know where all these have come from, but with today's gadgets like fridges and freezers and good washing up liquid and always hot water on tap, could they not be modified slightly? But I thought, don't say anything. And she finished up by saying that she and her husband, along with their little boy, had recently been accepted to go live in Israel and how excited she was about going. She announced that she and her husband had managed to get jobs as a waiter and a waitress over there. And again, I thought, bite your tongue, Viv. Because both she and her husband were fully qualified GPs. And it seemed to me, as an outsider, that God had granted them with talents, not only talents of intellect, but of healing as well. And here they were, going to be a waiter and a waitress. I don't know whether when they got to Israel, in fact, things changed. I don't know. I've never been in touch with her since. But I do wonder sometimes whether common sense also needs to play a part in our faith. But it also made me realise how Jesus was really facing a brick wall when he was talking to the Pharisees. They were so rooted in their rituals and their rites that they could not see what Jesus was saying. And so as we look today at that reading, where the Pharisees were very, very upset because Jesus had sat down to a meal without washing his hands, that they fail to understand his meaning, that it's not what we eat, but what we say and what we do that causes the problems. Well, we all know that, don't we? Really, deep down. We know that we like some foods better than others. And we also know that if we eat some foods, they're going to upset our tummies. But that does not make us evil. What makes us evil is our thoughts, which can turn to all sorts of evil deeds and words. I did find it fascinating, that little reading, that there is a bracketed phrase where Jesus says that all food is acceptable. And if you think about it, it's going to be quite some time after his death, his resurrection, and his ascension that Peter has that dream of God presenting him with a banquet with all foods on it and saying, you may eat what you like. And it's after that time that the Gentiles were not forced to stick to the rules and regulations of the Jewish people. There's another aspect to all of this. The Pharisees and the Orthodox Jews had many of these rituals and rites. Whether they were in themselves right or wrong, that's for you to decide. But they were ways of remembering God throughout the day. And that's something that I think most of us have lost in this day and age. No longer do we as a family read the Bible in the evening and then talk about it and say our prayers before we go to bed. Instead, we're out doing activities or watching the television or listening to music or whatever. Very few families will say grace before a meal. So what rituals can you think of that you could put in daily to help you remember throughout the day that you are a Christian and that you need to keep in touch with God to let him talk to you? Maybe it's simple acts that you know you do every day. Thank God for the medicines you take. Thank God that you can reach your shoes to put them on. Maybe if you go out for a walk, every 50, 100 steps or whatever, look around and give thanks for the world around you. I don't know. So I can challenge you as the Lent is almost approaching. Think about it. What is it that you do daily that you could attach a prayer to keep you in touch with God? Because unless we keep that communication line open, it is very easy for us to go astray, possibly without even realizing it. And it might stop us opening our mouths and saying things that we might regret. Amen.